I think it's safe to say that change is on my agenda. Change for good. And I embrace that and I enjoy that change. I don't fear it.
The room had been prepared for a routine royal briefing, but Prince William was not there to discuss schedules, ceremonies, or carefully managed appearances. He entered carrying years of restrained anger, stopped beside an empty chair, and delivered one sentence that stunned every person present. Meghan will never stand where Diana stood. It was not merely a rejection. It was a line drawn through memory, status, and the future of the monarchy. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. William pushed the proposed seating diagram across the table and placed one finger over the position once associated with his mother. A senior family briefing was a private meeting where senior royals and trusted aides settled major duties before any public announcement. This discussion was meant to confirm arrangements for an upcoming memorial event. Instead, it became a direct fight over who had the right to inherit Diana's symbolic place. The prince declared that the position was not available, transferable, or open to negotiation. Diana had once stood there while greeting charity workers, comforting grieving families, and shaping a more compassionate image of royalty. To the advisors, it was a location on a ceremonial plan. To William, it carried his mother's suffering, courage, and unfinished legacy. William gripped the back of an empty chair as fury collided with grief. He had spent years watching Diana's memory become a tool for headlines, strategy, and private ambition. Now someone had placed Meghan's name beside hers as though emotional influence could be reassigned. His pain mattered because the comparison reduced both women to symbols while ignoring the personal wounds surrounding them. Meghan learned of the declaration through a secure recorded call shortly after the meeting. She listened without interrupting, then asked for the sentence to be repeated exactly. Her expression hardened. She did not hear a son protecting his mother. She heard a future king announcing that she would never be accepted as a woman of equal influence, no matter what work she attempted or how loudly she spoke. The deeper shock came from the paperwork. A documented review showed that the proposal had not come from ordinary event planners. Someone with enough authority to bypass William's household had inserted the arrangement into the final briefing papers. Charles had reviewed the revised plan the previous evening, but had not rejected it, leaving his son unsure whether the king supported the comparison or simply feared stopping it. As the meeting ended, William noticed Camilla closing a folder marked Legacy Placement. The queen consort avoided his gaze, but the title told him this argument had begun long before his arrival. But before William could discover who had placed Meghan's name beside Diana's memory, he had to confront the people whose private ambitions had turned two women into symbols in a battle neither could fully control. To understand why William's words landed with such force, one must understand what Diana still represents inside the palace, and what Meghan believes was taken from her. One woman became immortal through loss. The other built her identity around survival, defiance, and escape. Between them stands William, no longer merely a grieving son, but a future king determined to decide where remembrance ends and imitation begins. Diana's former ceremonial position carried meaning far beyond protocol. A ceremonial position was the formally assigned place from which a royal greeted guests, represented the crown, and became associated with a public cause. For her, that place had come to represent an independent humanitarian identity rather than a royal marriage. William remembered standing nearby as a child, while his mother spoke gently to people others avoided. To him, that memory was not decoration. It was sacred. Meghan's supporters saw something different. They believed she had also challenged a restrictive institution, spoken openly about emotional suffering, and watched admiration turn into hostility. The comparison grew because both women were presented as outsiders who refused to remain silent. Yet William privately resented that argument. He believed it reduced Diana's entire life to a convenient weapon in someone else's battle. William opened an old photograph album while alone and paused at an image of his mother kneeling beside a frightened child. The prince felt grief harden into resolve. Diana had earned that place through years of service, pain, and public courage. He could not accept advisors treating it like an empty space, waiting for a replacement. Meghan heard his words as humiliation. During a recorded private call from California, she told Harry that William had positioned himself as the sole guardian of a legacy she had often invoked when describing her own treatment. She asked whether the future king truly believed she was unworthy of standing there. Harry looked away before answering. That hesitation wounded her more deeply than the declaration itself. Harry understood his brother's protectiveness, but he had also told Meghan many times that Diana would have recognized her struggle. His comparison had given her comfort. Now it appeared to have helped create the very confrontation tearing them apart. Catherine warned William during a documented private conversation that his statement could sound like an attack on Meghan rather than a defense of his mother. He answered that silence would have allowed others to rewrite Diana's place in royal history. Then Harry revealed the most dangerous detail. Meghan had never requested the position. Someone inside the palace had privately assured them that the comparison was wanted. That hesitation exposed the hidden truth. The crisis had not begun with William's declaration, but with a private promise made during a memorial rehearsal that should never have taken place. 3 weeks before William's statement, the memorial hall had been nearly empty. No cameras were present. No crowds waited outside. Yet in that silent space, a single rehearsal transformed an awkward proposal into a royal crisis. Meghan's name was spoken, Diana's position was marked, and one senior figure gave an assurance that would later be denied. Everyone would look back on that afternoon as the moment retreat became impossible. The event had been designed to honor royal women who changed public service. A memorial event was a formal gathering created to preserve a person's legacy through speeches, charitable tributes, and symbolic royal participation. Organizers had originally kept the roles separate. Diana's humanitarian work would receive its own tribute, while Meghan and Harry would appear through a recorded contribution focused on charitable causes. Catherine held the central memorial position because she now carried the title once associated with Diana. That placement was meant to connect past and present without turning one woman into another. Camilla objected. During a documented rehearsal account later copied into the planning record, she argued that the arrangement gave Diana's memory greater emotional weight than the reigning household. The Queen Consort insisted that Meghan's physical presence could modernize the ceremony and prove that more than one royal woman had challenged palace tradition. Catherine immediately sensed the danger. She watched an aide move Meghan's name beside Diana's marker and told the coordinator that William must be consulted. Her warning was dismissed as unnecessary sensitivity. That reaction mattered because it showed the change was no longer being treated as a simple adjustment. Someone wanted it approved before the prince could stop it. Camilla then stepped onto the marked platform and pointed directly toward Diana's former ceremonial position. She instructed the Lord Chamberlain's deputy to reserve it for Meghan. The Lord Chamberlain's office was the royal department responsible for organizing major ceremonies and formal appearances. She also authorized an aide to tell Harry through a secure call that the arrangement carried the king's support. A junior coordinator entered the change into the official event plan. Catherine waited until the others had moved away, erased Meghan's name in pencil, and repeated that William had to be told. After she left, another aide rewrote the name in ink. Catherine remained alone beside the platform for several moments. She pressed her hand against Diana's brass memorial marker and whispered that the change could not become irreversible. The rehearsal record later vanished from the main file. One duplicate survived, inside a sealed briefing folder, delivered to William on the morning of his declaration. When William finally saw the duplicate plan, his anger was no longer directed at an abstract decision. It had a name, a signature, and a person waiting behind a closed drawing room door. There were no secretaries in the room, no advisors to soften the language, and no cameras to reward restraint. William entered carrying the altered plan. Camilla remained seated, refusing to appear intimidated. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then the prince placed the paper between them and demanded to know why Meghan had been promised the one symbolic position he considered inseparable from his mother's memory. William had arranged the private Windsor meeting without Charles because he feared his father would turn the confrontation into another careful compromise. The sovereign was the reigning monarch whose formal authority shaped royal decisions, but this dispute had moved beyond official power. It concerned Diana, Catherine, Meghan, and a memory the future king believed no institution had the right to redistribute. Camilla answered with controlled defiance. She argued that the memorial belonged to the crown, not to William or any single branch of the family. Symbolic spaces had to evolve, she said, or the monarchy would become trapped inside its own history. Meghan's presence could offer reconciliation with Harry while presenting the royal family as capable of change. William gripped the back of a chair until his knuckles paled. He accused Camilla of using Diana's memory to solve a political problem the palace had failed to settle through honesty. His voice remained low, but every word carried years of restrained fury. The prince said she had spent years asking the public to move beyond the past, while privately rearranging that past whenever it suited the institution. Camilla's composure finally fractured. She pushed her chair backward and rose abruptly. The queen consort told him that he did not own grief, nor could he freeze every symbol connected to his mother forever. William slid the rehearsal plan toward her and pointed to Meghan's name. He asked why it had been rewritten in ink after Catherine erased it. Camilla answered through a documented account of her earlier private conversation with Charles. The king had verbally approved what he called a gesture of reconciliation. William went still. His father had not merely overlooked the arrangement. He had allowed Diana's ceremonial position to become bargaining material in the conflict with Harry and Meghan. William declared that Charles could approve invitations, attendance, and protocol, the official rules governing royal ceremonies, but he could not transfer the emotional meaning of Diana's legacy. He cancelled the placement and demanded that every revised copy be withdrawn. Camilla reached the door, then warned that the monarch would see this as a challenge to sovereign authority, not simply a son defending his mother. The argument had exposed Camilla's role, but the greater confrontation was still ahead, because the final authority did not sit in that room, it waited in the king's study. King Charles had spent much of his life trapped between private feeling and public duty, but this decision demanded something more painful. On his desk lay two versions of the memorial plan, one promising reconciliation with Harry and Meghan, the other preserving Diana's position exactly as William demanded. The king could protect institutional authority or acknowledge that some royal symbols belonged to wounds the crown had no right to rearrange. Charles held the formal power to approve the memorial layout, guest roles, and ceremonial placement. Ceremonial placement meant the exact position assigned to a royal during an official event, often carrying symbolic meaning far beyond where someone stood. William's cancellation had therefore created a dangerous tension. The heir had overridden a plan verbally accepted by the sovereign, and senior advisors warned that either choice could deepen the family fracture. The king read William's handwritten objection again, and stopped at one sentence. "You cannot offer away the last place where I still see my mother." Charles removed his glasses and remained silent. That line stripped the dispute of protocol. It forced him to confront his son's grief, and it revealed why the decision mattered beyond one ceremony. Approving the change might protect reconciliation with Harry and Meghan, but it could destroy trust with the Prince of Wales. William entered expecting resistance. He told his father he was not challenging the crown. He was defending a memory that had already been used too often for strategy. Charles answered that a future king could not personally decide which royal symbols were beyond sovereign control. The crown, he insisted, could not function if private pain became stronger than formal authority. William placed Diana's childhood photograph beside the document. Charles reached for his fountain pen, paused over the approval line, then set it down untouched. The king finally admitted through a recorded private exchange that he had approved a gesture toward Meghan, but had never been told it involved Diana's exact position. Camilla had described it only as a public act of reconciliation. That confession shifted responsibility back toward the queen consort, but it also exposed Charles's careless consent. He had approved symbolism without asking what the symbolism meant. A legal and ceremonial review confirmed that no person permanently owned the position. Yet the keeper of the royal archives, the official responsible for protecting historic royal records, warned that placing Meghan there would create a deliberate parallel with Diana and permanently reshape how the memorial entered history. Charles postponed his ruling for one night. Before dawn, an aide leaked William's declaration. By sunrise, the argument was no longer confined to father and son. William's words had escaped the palace, and Meghan was about to discover how brutally a private wound could become a public verdict. The statement reached California before the palace issued a denial, explanation, or correction. Meghan saw the words glowing across a phone screen, while Harry stood only a few feet away. For one suspended moment, she said nothing. Then she read the sentence aloud, slowly, as though testing whether it could sound less final when spoken. It did not. The message felt personal, deliberate, and impossible to misunderstand. A leaked summary of the Windsor briefing named William as the source and linked his declaration directly to the cancelled memorial placement. Within minutes, the phrase became the defining headline of the conflict. Palace Communications staff, the team responsible for official royal statements and public responses, drafted neutral wording that described the dispute as ceremonial planning. Neither side accepted it. The language erased the emotional meaning of what had happened. Meghan closed her laptop and placed the phone face down. She believed William had denied her more than a position. He had rejected any right to be compared with Diana, the woman whose experience had helped Harry understand her suffering. The comparison had given Meghan a sense that someone from royal history might have recognized her pain. Now the future king appeared to be shutting that door forever. Harry felt fury rise, but guilt followed close behind. He had repeatedly told his wife that Diana would have understood her struggle. During a recorded private conversation, Meghan asked whether he had personally promised her the memorial position. Harry admitted he believed Charles had already approved it. He had spoken with confidence because an aide had assured him the palace wanted the gesture. Meghan then learned through a documented event planning record that the original proposal had not come from her team. That discovery changed the accusation. She had not demanded Diana's place. Someone inside the palace had positioned her there, knowing the comparison could trigger an explosion between the brothers. William responded with a private written instruction to his household. No aide was to attack Meghan personally, question her motives, or suggest she had designed the arrangement. His objection, the prince insisted, concerned Diana's memorial role alone. The distinction mattered because he wanted to defend his mother without turning another woman into the enemy. Yet the global backlash had already outrun his control. Meghan opened the folder containing her prepared memorial speech, removed the first page, and tore it in half. Harry watched without knowing whether stopping her would feel like support or another demand to endure humiliation quietly. She told him she would not attend any event where her dignity depended on palace permission. Harry picked up his phone and sent William one message. "You defended Mum by humiliating my wife. Speak to me without the palace between us." Harry's message offered one final chance to prevent a permanent family rupture, but only if the two brothers could speak as Diana's sons, rather than opponents inside a royal war. No aides arranged the conversation. No palace secretary prepared talking points. William and Harry spoke through a private, encrypted call with no one else listening. For the first time since the crisis began, the argument was stripped of titles, ceremonial maps, and competing households. There were only two brothers, one dead mother, and a question neither could avoid. Had Diana's memory become the final weapon in their separation? Harry spoke first. He accused William of turning a dispute over one ceremonial place into a judgment on Meghan's worth. An encrypted call was a protected conversation designed to prevent outsiders from hearing or recording it. The prince answered that his words had been spoken inside a closed briefing and were never meant to become a public attack. Yet intention no longer mattered. The sentence had escaped, and Meghan had been wounded by it. Both brothers understood the deeper struggle. William guarded Diana's institutional legacy, the lasting place her work held within royal history. Harry held tightly to her rebellion against emotional pressure and used that memory to explain why he had left. They were protecting different parts of the same mother, and each feared the other was changing her into something she had never been. Harry's voice broke when he explained what Meghan had heard. To her, the declaration proved she would always remain an intruder, tolerated only when the palace found her useful. He admitted that he had once promised his wife she would never be left alone inside the royal system. Now he felt he had failed that promise. William answered with his own fear. Diana was slowly being transformed from their mother into a public role anyone could inherit. He confessed that guarding her memory was sometimes the only way he still knew how to protect her. The future king did not withdraw that belief, but his anger softened when Harry revealed the private assurance behind the plan. Harry explained that Camilla's aide had described the placement as a peace offering personally supported by Charles. He and Meghan had accepted in principle because refusing might have been presented as another rejection of the family. William finally understood the trap. His sister-in-law had been placed in an impossible position and then blamed for the conflict created around her. William held the original memorial plan toward the camera, folded it once through Meghan's name, and said, "This should never have reached either of our wives." The brothers agreed on one demand. Charles must publicly confirm that Meghan had never requested Diana's position, and that the memorial arrangement had been permanently revised. Their agreement did not heal the family, but it changed the direction of the crisis and forced the palace to tell the public who had truly created the comparison. By morning, William's sentence had moved beyond royal walls and become a national argument about memory, race, grief, and belonging. Some saw a son defending his mother. Others saw a future king denying Meghan the dignity of comparison. Yet the loudest reaction came when the palace finally admitted that she had never requested Diana's position. In that instant, the story shifted from rivalry to manipulation. Broadcasters framed the dispute as a battle over who controlled Diana's legacy. A formal palace clarification was an official statement issued to correct public understanding, without revealing every private detail. Commentators defended William's emotional boundary, arguing that a memorial should not turn grief into strategy. Others condemned the harshness of his words and insisted that protecting one woman's memory should never require humiliating another. William watched the coverage beside Catherine and felt the certainty drain from his anger. He had spoken to stop a symbolic transfer, not to attack Meghan's worth. Yet intent could not undo impact. Catherine told him that truth mattered, but truth did not erase the pain his sentence had caused. The future king understood why the distinction mattered. He had defended Diana, while allowing another woman to carry blame for a plan she had never created. Meghan read the clarification in silence. The statement confirmed that the proposed placement had originated inside the event planning process, and had not been requested by the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Those titles referred to Harry and his wife's formal royal rank. She felt vindicated, but not comforted. Her name had already been tied to ambition, imitation, and disrespect. The correction arrived only after the accusation had traveled around the world. A leaked rehearsal log then confirmed that Camilla had authorized the placement, after calling it a symbolic bridge between past and present. The documented record ended the remaining doubt. Charles ordered the log sealed, but the king accepted that the original memorial plan could no longer survive. The palace announced a new arrangement. Diana's former position would remain empty throughout the ceremony, marked only by a single white rose. Meghan's charitable work would be recognized separately, without comparison or borrowed symbolism. The London Herald captured the public divide on its front page. Beneath an image of the vacant ceremonial platform ran the headline, "No one stands in Diana's place." Outside Kensington Palace, crowds left white roses and two handwritten cards. One read, "Protect her memory." The other said, "Do not punish another woman." During the evening broadcast, the presenter paused beside the empty platform and declared that the vacant space had become more powerful than any planned royal appearance. The public had delivered two conflicting judgments, but the final meaning of William's statement would depend on whether he chose pride, silence, or accountability. Prince William did not withdraw the boundary he had drawn around Diana's memory. But he did something the palace had not expected. He accepted responsibility for the pain caused by the way he expressed it. In a final statement, The future king separated Meghan from the decision made in her name, preserved his mother's symbolic place, and brought the conflict to an end without pretending the family itself had been repaired. William released a carefully written statement, confirming that Diana's memorial position would remain permanently unassigned. A memorial position was the symbolic place connected to a person's public service and historical identity during a royal ceremony. The prince explained that preserving it did not create a hierarchy between women. It recognized that some associations were too personal, too painful, and too deeply rooted in history to be transferred. Charles formally approved the revised ceremony through a documented royal order. The king accepted that the empty place, marked by a single white rose, would become the crown's official acknowledgement that remembrance should sometimes be protected rather than redesigned. His decision mattered because it ended the dispute over authority while admitting that royal power had limits when it touched private grief. William also addressed Meghan directly within the statement. He confirmed that she had never requested Diana's position and said his private words should never have become a verdict on her character or charitable work. He did not apologize for defending his mother. He expressed regret that Meghan had become the target of a conflict created by others. Meghan chose not to attend the ceremony, but she allowed her recorded charitable message to be shown. Her decision carried its own dignity. She would not compete with Diana, and she would not accept a role built around comparison. Harry then confirmed publicly, through a recorded statement, that his wife had never asked to stand in that place. Charles removed Camilla's authority over the memorial planning and ordered that future legacy events require written approval from both the sovereign and the Prince of Wales. The change closed the route through which the crisis had been created. William and Harry did not fully reconcile, but they agreed that Diana's memory must never again be used against either wife. At the ceremony, William approached the empty position alone and placed a white rose beneath Diana's name. Catherine quietly took his hand as Charles lowered his head. Meghan's message began without mentioning the controversy. The final verdict was clear. Diana's place remained untouched. Meghan's name was separated from an ambition she never expressed. William learned that grief could explain his wound without excusing every word spoken through it. No woman replaced another. The empty place became the conclusion. And when the white rose stood alone, where Diana once stood, the palace finally understood that remembrance is not a throne to be claimed, but a promise to be kept. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.